Hey guys, my name is Thomas Farrow. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about quantitative easing and its effects on the economy. Okay, so quantitative easing is defined as a monetary policy used by central banks to increase the money supply in an economy when a banking failure takes place, such as like a country would introduce this, such as in a situation like a recession or a big economic failure. Many countries have used this technique before. An example would be the U.S. during the Great Depression in the 20s. Another more modern example would be the current U.S. recession and the Federal Reserve instituting quantitative easing to help the economy recover. The first main effect of quantitative easing is a dilution of the currency value. When the central bank prints more money, so it can buy bonds and other forms of financial money, bonds, treasury notes, and whatnot. The currency is diluted because of the increased supply. So, with the increased supply comes a decrease in the value. The table depicts the growth that the Federal Reserve saw in its assets over the past few years. In 07 and 08, when the crash occurred, the Reserve's assets had been on the decline, then only to be greatly increased. They went from $275 billion to $995 billion, as the table shows. This is mostly due to an attempt by the Federal Reserve to save AIG. And then in 2012, the Federal Reserve announced it would purchase $85 billion of bonds and other types of financial paper a month. The second effect of quantitative easing is increased interest rates. Mortgage and long-term Treasury bond rates are the biggest things that when they are increased or decreased, it shows the greatest amount of economic stability or economic instability. It shows a stimulated economy that is growing. Artificial limiting of the interest rates weakens the dollar, but the currency is already below its potential value due to quantitative easing, so it doesn't matter. Interest rates show that the economy is recovering and growing, but at a snail's pace. The next slide has a table displaying the current interest rates and the rates from 6 months ago. Credit card rates have dropped slightly, but they aren't a true value or representation of how an economy is actually recovering. Mortgage and long-term Treasury composites are important. They've both increased greatly, 25% respectively, over 25% respectively. Mortgage at 27.45%, and long-term Treasury notes at 25.45%. Third and final effect I'm going to discuss in the video is the purpose of QE is to stimulate the economy and bring it back to its former glory. So with that said, investments are a big factor and important when it comes to the recovering of an economy, the health of the economy. The overall market was affected more than interest rates and bonds since the Institute of Quantitative Easing in 07 and 08. Once Ben Bernanke addressed the issue of quantitative easing and when it might end or show its largest improvement, investment firms and the real estate market saw pretty big losses. It's an unstable economy at the moment, but it is growing and recovering with the help of the Federal Reserve and quantitative easing. It's important for QE to end, though, when sustainable growth is reached. And if it doesn't, then the economy can become dependent on it, and when it is pulled, the economy can fail again. With that said, though, there is still a chance that the economy will, when quantitative easing is ended, that the economy will drop slightly again. Ben Bernanke has said that once markets show sustainable healthy growth, he will phase out the QE policy, quantitative easing policy. Like I said, Ben Bernanke is the current chairman of the Federal Reserve. In the quote I have posted there, he talks about the current scope of the country and how effective quantitative easing has been. He states that if the economy continues to grow at the rate it is, then the Federal Reserve can moderate the pace of bond purchases. The goal is to end bond purchases somewhere near the middle of the year. This would be great news, obviously, for the country's economy. It would show that the country has a stable economy once again and can move on. But with that said, once QE is ended, like I said before, the economy could drop slightly and have less sustainable growth, or hold strong and keep going. When QE is pulled, the goal is to have unemployment near 7% and a steady flow of jobs being created. In conclusion, I just want to talk about countries. Countries use this concept to bolster its economy through the manipulation of the currency. It's not exactly the best way to do it, but it will do it. It screws with the currency, and it's its competitiveness. It's an artificial competitiveness on international markets. The currency value is lowered so that people can spend more money and put the economy back on its feet. Interest rates for mortgages and long-term treasury notes are important. This shows healthy growth and sustainable growth. It's an outcome of the growth stimulated by QE or quantitative easing. Countries won't end quantitative easing until the economy can stand on its own and have sustainable growth. Once the currency is restored to its full value, it becomes less competitive on international markets. Like I said, so countries have to pay more and more for the goods than while a country is under quantitative easing. So that ends the discussion on quantitative easing. If anyone has questions, I have the link to the article I used posted there in the video. The article is by Dr. Elliot R. Morris. It's a great article. I suggest everyone going to watch it. Thanks for listening.